Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om. We'll continue our journey of Katha Upanishad. Coincidentally, Katha Upanishad has very famous stanza popularized by Swami Vivekananda. Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Varanni Bodhat. And today is his birth anniversary per English calendar, 12th of January. So we pray to him. Because of him, Vedanta got popularity actually started in West and then eventually caught up in India as well. So after he stressed on Bhagavad Gita, its teachings, especially Gnan, Karma, Bhakti and Raja Yoga, and then his lectures on Upanishads, and he also covered Brahma Sutras in detail. So all these contributed to rekindling interest in Vedanta, and we are continuing that journey started by him in modern world, and that's why we are discussing Upanishads. And in Katha Upanishad, today we'll start with second vallI, first adHyAya, 14th verse. Yathodakam durge vrishtam pavarteshu vidhavati evam dharman pruthak pashyam sthane vanu vidhavati. Its meaning, when water rains on a mountain, it runs down in all directions. Just like that, he who perceives different truths runs after them in all directions. We can see some parallel between this and very famous mantra in Bhakti traditions. Akashat patitam toyam yatha gacchati sagaram. I forgot the second part, but the water that falls on all the mountains from the sky, they all collected into ocean, and that ocean is represented as Vishnu. So everything in all directions eventually go to Vishnu. And similar notion is here, that when water rains on a mountain, it runs down in all the directions. So the truth is one, but that one truth, when it takes form in the sense the rain drops on mountain, it can go in any directions, umpteens of directions, and we can select any direction to go back to the source. Generally, we see many paths, and we always talked about having 4 different angas doing together: Gnan, Karma, Kriya and Bhakti. Even Bhagavad Gita, I keep stressing on that over and over, that it's not only Bhakti or it's not only Karma Yoga, it's all together: Gnan, Karma, Kriya and Bhakti. So having all those 4 together will bring us close to knowing the ultimate truth, the eternal truth, and that kind of is reflected in this verse. 15th verse. Yathodakam shuddhe shuddha masik tam tadagev bhavati evam munirvijanata atma bhavati gautama. When pure water is poured into pure water, it becomes one. Just like that, when a sage knows the self, he becomes one with it, O Gautama. Here Nachiketa is called Gautama because he was born in Gotra of Gautama Rishi, and that's why he is Gautama. And the Rupak taken here is, take a pure water and add that to another bowl of pure water, so it becomes one. We cannot distinguish between one pure water versus the other. Just like that, once we have Atma Sakshatkar, once we know ourselves, after that realization, we are one with Supreme Self, Paramatma or Parabrahma. There is no distinction between us and God. So whoever is on that path and reaches that goal in this life, ultimately he or she has become God. Again, this is a metaphor. We can say a drop of ocean and ocean, there is no difference, attribute wise, quality wise, extent or quantity, yes. So at element level or tattvic level, there is no difference between ocean and a drop of ocean, but there is a distinction. We can say that that drop is not the ocean, ocean is ocean, right? So similarly, even if we know our Atma, self-realization, that is the ultimate goal for this life, and we become one with God, there is no distinction after that. But that does not mean somebody can claim that I am God and start worshipping now onwards to me and pray to me and I am your goal now onwards. It cannot be claimed like that. So that's a completion of first adhyaya. Second, I think I put it wrongly. This is second adhyaya and first vallI, and this is second vallI in the second adhyaya. And first verse, Puramekadashadvara majasya vakra chetasah anushthaya na shochati vimuktascha vimuchyate etadvai tat. The city of the never born, unchanging consciousness has 11 gates. Worshipping these, one never grieves and is liberated from all bondages. This indeed is that. Now again, Sharira Madhya Khalu Sarva Sadhanam. Our Sharir, our body, is our first gateway or first tool in self realization. So the first tool has 11 gates. This is what it is said. 11 gates meaning we have 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, mouth, navel, genital, anus. So these are 11 orifices or 11 dwara. So this body, this is our first tool, first step, first gate or first gateway to the self realization, and we must use it well, is what is said here. So we have to worship, meaning this is like mandir for Atma and Paramatma. So if that resides within us, this is mandir, our physical body, and we must worship, meaning we must nurture, we must preserve, we must protect, and we must use that to reach God. Hanshah Shuchishadva Surantariksha Sadhota Vedisha Dati Thirdurunasat Nushadvara Sadyat Sadvosma Sad Abja Goja Rutaja Adrija Rutam Bruhat. As the sun, he dwells in light. As the air, he dwells in firmament. As fire, he dwells in the sacrificial altar. As a guest, he dwells in the house. He dwells in men, in gods, in truth, in space, in air. He is born in water, on the earth, in truth, in stones. He is true and great. Now, sun has light. So, can we say sun rays that reach us has some ansha, some part of sun, because ultimately it has born from the sun. Similarly, air has element of firmament, being steadfast, going everywhere on this loka, on this earth, just like that. that consciousness, that Atma. Fire lives in the fire altar, in the yajna. The fire lives in the yajna. Similarly, our Atma lives in this altar, this sacrificial altar of body. Atma lives there. And as a guest, he dwells in the house. So guest lives temporarily. So Atma lives temporarily in this body, in this house. He dwells in men, in gods, in truth, in space and air. So that Atma, or I would say that possibility of life, lives everywhere. In person to person we see there is Atma. Similarly, in gods there is Atma. Even though they are called higher beings, there is Atma. In truth, truth is, it can be interpreted at multiple ways, but the truth that is spoken here is Paramatma, because that is eternal truth. And in space and air, now air, there are certain elements in air which nurture life, which preserve life. And in space, meaning the space contains everything, the space holds everything. Whatever we think of, whatever we talk about, whatever we see around us is being held in space. So that space is kind of a womb, and that represents Paramatma as well, because it is everywhere. One important thing mentioned here is he is born in water. Now we use this term Narayana many a times. So Narayana is the one that lives in water, that stays in water. And here Rishi is saying, Rishi meaning through Yama, Rishi is giving us these teachings. So he is born in water. Now we say that Narayana is never born, never destroyed. But who is born here? So that is Atma. That Atma, which is a particle, so to speak, of Paramatma, and when that is born in mother's womb, it is surrounded by water. Water does not mean drinking water, meaning fluid. So it is surrounded by that. On the earth. So when we are born, we are born here, right? We are born on the earth. Now interestingly, it is said in stones. So what could that be? It cannot be a literal meaning of stone. See, a mother carries fetus in fluid. There is no stone anywhere there. But we can say that stone has quality of being steadfast. It does not move. Just like that, the fetus does not move. It just stays there. It might have movement within it, but ultimately that the whole structure, that whole body is kind of firm in mother's body for 9 months. And that's how one person is born. Third verse, urdhva prana munnayatya panam pratyagasyati madhye vamanamasinam vishve deva upasate. He pulls in the incoming breath and throws out the outgoing breath. That minute, one who stands in the center and whom all gods worship. Now this is very important aspect of Bhairava Vijnana Tantra that is originated in Kashmir long time back. I forgot his name, but he saw the whole Vijnana Bhairava Tantra written on stones somewhere in Himalayas, and he wrote down all those. And from there this tradition of Vijnana Bhairava Tantra continued. And it has 112 sutras, and each sutra is one path of self-realization. So take one sutra, follow it, that will take us to self-realization, to Atma Sakshatkar. And all the gurus that are born after that, all the acharyas that are born after that, whatever method of Ashtanga Yoga one follows, whatever they teach, it all roots back to 112 sutras. Any method you take of any guru, of any yogic tradition or method in the world, in today's world, they all go back to Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. It was very much popularized by Osho in recent times, and Sri Ravi Shankar and Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, they all follow the same 112 sutras of Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And one of them is what is written here. So what it says, when we take breath in, something goes in, and we know with science that it is oxygen that we want to take from air. Air is a mixture of many different elements, but we are more interested in oxygen. So when we take breath in, we consume oxygen out of it, and then the breath goes out, takes out mostly carbon dioxide, because that is generated within the body, and we need to take it out from the body to sustain life, because we want oxygen and we want to get rid of carbon dioxide. So breath in brings oxygen that reaches all the body parts. Breath going out takes out the carbon dioxide generated in the body, and this all happens within lungs. So lungs have a capacity, or those lungs cells are equipped to take oxygen from air and put carbon dioxide in the air that is within the lungs and take it out. But what Rishi is saying here is, take breath in and take breath out. So that transition, when that transition happens from in to out, some fraction of second, some milliseconds, there is a pause, and do dhyana on that pause. Try to observe that pause, and that pause will take us to self-realization, that will take us to Atma Sakshatkar. So this is one of the techniques taught by many different gurus. Now there are multiple variations of this. It is written here that we have to observe the pause between in and out. Similarly, there is a pause from out to in. So when we take breath out and when we take breath in, so between there is a pause of microseconds. So try to observe that. If we consciously observe all this, the pause, whether it is outside or whether this is inside, observe this pause, and because of that pause, will realize something, and that realization is Atma Sakshatkar. Fourth verse. Asya visram samanasya sharirasthasya dehinah dehadvi muchyamanasya kimatra parishishyate etadvaitat. This consciousness eventually gets released from the bodies of the embodied ones. That consciousness which remains when freed from the body, this indeed is that. So in a nutshell, when we say we pass away, when somebody has passed away, what is going out of the body? That which is, even though it is covered with Maya, unless somebody is freed from the Maya and attains Nirvana or Mukti, whatever that entity is, it indeed is that. Meaning, in that state, whatever that state is, we don't experience, we don't realize while in this body. And when we leave the body, how can we let somebody know? There is a very famous book, an autobiography of a yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. he is mentioning his incident, I think probably 1930s or during that time. He was in Mumbai and his guru Sri Yukteswarji passed away long time back, and in his hotel room he had a vision of his guru Sri Yukteswar. Sri Yukteswar appeared just like he was in flesh and blood in his body, and he explained what happens after somebody passes away, and depending upon whatever stage one has attained in the life, one goes through different stages after leaving the body, and what are those stages and how they pass through all of them and where they stay. It's within or outside, we don't know. It's beyond our physical dimensions. So whatever happens there, he quite explained that in detail. If I am not mistaken, it's 44th or 43rd chapter in that book. It is available online in PDF format. Autobiography of a Yogi by Sri Paramahansa Yogananda. And it is good to read that, his views, whatever vision he had. And it has answers of many things. Even though we do not seek those, or it's up to us, but there are many things described in that. It's an interesting read. 5th verse. न प्राणेन नापानेन मर्त्यो जीवति कश्चन इतरेण तु जीविन्त यस्मन्नेता वुपाश्रितौ. Neither by incoming breath nor by outgoing breath does any mortal live. It is something else on which these two depend that gives mortals life. So we say that animal or birds or anything that is sustained via taking breath in and taking it out, but it's not the air that goes in and goes out, it's something beyond. It is said that the air is just an envelope that envelopes something within. Now we can say in modern terms that it's oxygen, and oxygen is translated as prana vayu in many of Indian languages. So we can say that air is the envelope, and what it carries is oxygen particles, oxygen atoms, and that is sustainer of life. But that is not always true. There used to be some life forms on earth before this evolution. They used to live on carbon dioxide. There was life long time back. So when they took air, it consisted of carbon dioxide, and they lived on that. But ultimately the carbon dioxide level came down and oxygen came up, so the life we see has existed or evolved over the time. So is it oxygen, is it carbon dioxide, is it something else in the air? Our shastras say that something that is called prana is beyond physical dimension, and air which we see or which we experience, we take in and out, that is just an envelope of something, and what is within is the sustainer of life, and that is what is said here. 6th verse. हंतत इदं प्रवक्ष्यामि गुह्यं ब्रह्म सनातनं यथा च मरणं प्राप्य आत्मा भवति गौतम. Indeed, I will explain to you the mysteries, ancient Brahma, as well as what happens to the self after death, O Gautama. So now Yama is going to explain what happens when we leave our body and who is Brahma to Gautama, meaning somebody who is born in Gotra of Gautama, and that is Nachiketa. 7th verse. योनि मन्ये प्रपद्यन्ते शरीरत्वाय देहिनः स्थाणु मन्ये अनुसंयन्ति yatha karma yatha shrutam. Some enter the womb so that they can get another body. Some enter immovable matter according to their karma and their knowledge. So here, very interesting thing. The modern science does not believe that there is life in mountains or rivers or stones or other objects. We see or we consider only animals, including humans, birds, some virus, bacteria, some trees, vegetation. So we consider them living beings. Some 125 years back, until Jagdish Chandra Bose showed with experiments that plants have life, the Western science did not believe that plant had life. Now here our Shastras claim that the mountains, they also have life. Rivers, they also have life. All the planets, they also have life. Prithvi is our Mata, mother of all the gods and beings. But Prithvi is just not this planet. It also has life, which we don't perceive, we do not experience. We do not have ability yet to prove that there is life in all the planets or stones or mountains or rivers. But there is life, is what our Shastras say.
So there's a concept these days they talk about how do you tell whether it's a life or it's not life, right?
Right.
So they say if it changes the surrounding,
right.
It is life, right? So plant will, put roots.
It can, right.
So they say, planet is the first, Earth is the first object,
right.
Which when something comes towards it, it is able to repel it.
Right.
So let's say they're able to throw a rock in
Correct.
space or something like that.
Right.
But now what they're finding out that when you go down to the atomic level,
right,
everything is throwing something out,
right.
Even rocks are throwing
correct
some vibration out of it,
right.
Some kind of rays come out of it,
right.
And that's how they differ. You are able to touch it,
right.
When you touch it, you feel something back, right?
So it's interaction.
So this is also
right.
molecule. This is also
right.
molecule. When you touch it,
it will repel. Yes, we are not really touching. It's just yes.
It's giving you some. It's giving you some feeling on
right.
your skin, which
right.
You perceive it. Okay, there's a flow.
Correct. Correct.
So yes, by that way, everything has life, right? Because it's throwing some energy, some at the boundary of it, right? You
right.
have some force field, which doesn't let you go past a metal, right?
Yes. So we cannot pass through it. Yes.
You can't pass through metal.
Right.
Just like you pass through an air, even though it's the same thing, right?
Right.
There's also molecule. This is also molecule.
Correct.
But it has at the boundary, it has some things that it is projecting outwards.
Right.
So by that definition, it might have a life, right? Because it has properties which it's impacting right next to it.
Right. But isn't it true that when somebody leaves the body, meaning somebody passes away, whatever remains, can we claim that it has life even though all these properties still exist?
No.
So to
but
me,
the property of that person dies, right? Something remains.
Something
Ego changes.
Right.
That person, the way he was behaving, the knowledge he had,
right.
The way he was impacting, that doesn't.
Yes,
right?
that is gone.
Yeah.
And so we call it prana and consciousness in loose translation. So here the Rishi is claiming that everything has consciousness. So the scientific definition of interaction might not be adequate, is what I am trying to say. So a mountain can have different types of physical properties, but what prana is, mountain has consciousness, and that consciousness can leave that body also sometimes. Some of the mountains like Girnar and Himalayas in India, they are considered to be living mountains, and mountains Aravalli Parvatmala or Satpura, they are not called living mountains. So we can assume that what they are referring to is Girnar and Himalayas. They still have consciousness left in them. They are still alive. And Satpura or Aravalli, those regions, those mountains do not have consciousness anymore. So, I mean, this is what many rishis and many shastras say. So, I think this is what they are referring to.
Well, there is Pele in Hawaii. So she's very powerful. Even people who are there, they're like, they don't want to offend it in any way, right? Even the national parks and people, right? They're
right.
Scared of it.
Yes.
Right? They scare everyone. They're like signs posted everywhere trying to offend it.
Correct.
Pele, right?
Correct.
Yes. Even in Mexico, there's El Popocatépetl,
right,
and the people which are very powerful. They
right.
still pray to it. But those are like live because they're volcanoes,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
they're a little bit more live than
Correct.
So maybe Himalayas have more activity.
Correct.
Right? So they are probably have
Right.
more life. But
Probably,
Aravalli is
possibly.
even dead volcanoes, right? They
Correct.
don't have that much.
Yeah, there is no much things left there.
Right.
Very good point, Kaustubji. So I forgot what it is called, but there is a mound, a big mound in Utah or Dakotas. That structure is very strange looking, very big, and looks like a inverted mushroom stem. And it is the native Indians, they still worship that mountain and they consider it alive. So maybe there is some truth to it.
Where is it?
It's, I think, most probably in Utah or Dakotas.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
the Devil's Mountain.
Yeah, Devil's Mountain. Yes, Devil's Mountain. So it's very strange looking mountain, and but people who can perceive, especially native Indians, they consider it as a living mountain. Similarly, there is one in Australia. The Aborigines, they worship, I don't know its name, but they worship Uru, right. So these are the examples of living mountains. So living meaning what Rishi is referring here is consciousness, prana. So somebody, many a times I have some argument with my wife. I mean, we always, it's natural, right? So whatever we eat, if it has less degree of prana, it is just filling stomach. It does not help us. Nourishment or consuming some elements from food is fine. But what we are talking about is prana, consciousness. If we eat something fresh out of the plants, or maybe somebody who consumes meat would take fresh meat and consume. So these are food items which has more prana versus something that is kept in freezer for maybe a year, and if you try to consume that, it has very less prana left or no prana left, and effect of that in body. See, consuming elements or nourishments out of it is different thing. Filling stomach is a different thing. But what you feel at subtle level, if we have that, we have developed that sense due to some sadhana, then we can definitely differentiate between that food. We can definitely identify which food has more prana and which has less. So we should consume things with more prana, because we want to sustain this mandir. That until and unless we realize God, this life is going to be wasted, right? Wasted meaning it is going to get something, it is going to gain something. As Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna rightly says, even though we do not realize our goal, the next birth could be of a yogi or could be in a wealthy family. So we can have different opportunity and we can again continue our journey. But one thing for sure is we must live for 100 years, and in these 100 years we must try to have self-realization, and for that we must preserve this mandir, this body we just saw, right? So we must consume food with better prana or more prana as much as possible, or do activities which nourishes or nurtures our prana. So similarly, there is more thing said here. 8th verse, ya esha supteshu jagarti kamam purusho nirmimanah tadeva shukram tad brahma tadevamruta muchyate tisman lokah shritaha sarve tadu natyeti kasyana etadvaitat. This consciousness, who is awake in sleep, miraculously manifesting at his own will, he is resplendent indeed, that Brahma, who is called immortality itself. All worlds are dependent upon him, and no one goes beyond that. This indeed is that. Now there are certain attributes mentioned here. We cannot say what Brahma is, but whatever best justification we can do with the words, we are trying to do that. It's he or she, we don't know. It's beyond that. It's manifested, unmanifested, no, it's beyond that. Just like in 8th adHyAya of Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says that I am not Kshara, I am not Akshara, I am beyond that. Purushottama. So Kshara is whatever we see around us in physical sense, in 3 dimension, what we can physically see or touch or experience. It is going to change. Kshara. Akshara, which cannot be destroyed, energy. It can just change the form, but it is never going to be created, never going to be destroyed. But Krishna is beyond everything, is what is said in Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, what Rishi here is saying, that consciousness which represents Paramatma, Parabrahma, which is awake when we sleep. We can claim that okay, there is some activity in brain that is present when we sleep, like which controls our heartbeats and other activities, and whatever happens at different levels. But what is referred here is the consciousness which stays alive in all the times. That consciousness is going to decide when you will have Atma Sakshatkar. It's not us. Our job is just to keep working. But it does not mean that if we run 100 miles, we are going to reach something. If we do 30 minutes Ashtanga Yoga Sadhana every day, in 100 days we'll have self-realization. No, it's not going to be happening like that. The self, the Paramatma, knows what we are doing at our level as a self that is governed by the Trigunatmik Maya. All of our actions are controlled via that Maya, Trigunatmik Maya. So whatever actions we do, ultimately that self or consciousness or prana is going to decide when you are going to have that self-realization. So it's not up to us. What we can do is keep doing sadhana, keep practicing over and over, and we must not stop at any point.
So what was that shloka, last one, what you read? What does that mean? The last one which you read just now?
Right.
What Upanishad is this?
This is Katha Upanishad.
Okay.
And the first...
The shloka you read has some specific meaning here. Can you...
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. So this is in the context, the overall context.
Okay.
So, I mean, the literal meaning I already said. So what this is saying, that the consciousness is going to decide when you have that interaction, that self-realization. So it's not us or our actions deciding whether we are going to have self-realization. It's the self that will decide when we are going to have that realization.
Is it? Can you read one more time?
Yeah, sure.
Misunderstood first time.
Sure. This consciousness.
No, in Sanskrit.
Oh, okay. य एष सुप्तेषु जागर्ति कामं पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद् ब्रह्म तदेवामृतम् उच्यते तस्मिन् लोकाः श्रिताः सर्वे तदु नात्येति कश्चन एतद्वैतत्. So if we translate, this consciousness who is awake in sleep, miraculously manifesting at his own will, he is resplendent indeed, that Brahman, who is called immortality itself. All worlds are dependent upon him, and no one goes beyond that. This indeed is that. So
they're talking about Brahma, and they're giving you the aspect of. So I don't know Katha Upanishad, but have you gone over Mandukya Upanishad?
No, not yet.
So that will give you some link there. These words Jagrit and Swapna is well detailed in Mandukya.
Also in Bhagavad Gita.
Bhagavad Gita means might have used one or two things, but there it talks all the four state of.
Yes, Swapna, Shushupti, Jagruti, and Turiya. Right.
Yeah. So that is where it is going. If I understand, means the way Sanskrit is written, this Brahm is supporting Jagrit.
Right.
Vishwa, Jagrit, Vishwa, Swapna, Vishwa. All of them are world in themselves.
Right.
Four types of world, and this Brahm is supporting all four. Right now, it did not talk about the other two. It just says that the
right. But here important thing is miraculously manifesting at his own will. What does that mean? So that Brahma.
This is English translation. I don't think this miraculously manifesting is coming out of Sanskrit word.
Right.
Who has translated has got it. Who has translated this book?
Right. So let's go by that. So ye esha supteshu jagarti kamam. Right.
Is it Max Muller? Then it is.
No. Okay. This is Janki Parikh. Okay. And I chose this translation only because she is as much close to the Sanskrit translation as possible.
So one person from University of Austin, he's from Kerala.
Right.
His translation of Upanishads is considered to be the closest to Sanskrit word. Means this is the latest understanding.
Okay.
And Max Muller is the worst.
Yeah, we shouldn't go in that direction at all. I mean, Max Muller.
What I'm saying, the words have very specific meaning. When you are talking about Upanishad, you have to be very cautious. Like just now you are talking Pran. Now Pran and Chetana are not the same thing.
Right. I didn't say Chetana, right?
Chetana is consciousness.
Right.
We are saying Pran and consciousness. There is a very specific. That's why these new authors have taken care of Sanskrit transliteration.
Right.
Because Sanskrit language, we are teaching in our class as well. Sanskrit language is very much like blockchain. So if one hash code is broken, this entire thing will come out distorted.
Right. True.
One akshar has to build on other akshar to come out with the right meaning, right context.
Right. And that's why I use prana, right?
Yes. So pran, ojas, tejas, they are very different things in Atharved, in Ayurved.
Correct.
And they are nowhere near to this Brahma word.
Right. And actually I discussed this at length in one of the earlier Katha Upanishad discussions. That this is translation, right?
Whenever you post it, I do go through it most of the
time. Sure. Thank you. So whatever we say as pran, we can call it consciousness, life-tron. People have interpreted it different ways, right?
This is coming from English translation, which is incorrect. Pran is not anywhere close to Chetana or they are all different things.
But prana, how do we explain that?
Later.
Right? How do we explain prana if we take that word?
So that is something where you can take help from Yoga Sutra, where Patanjali says Ashtanga Yoga, he says pranayam. He tries to explain in other shlokas what does this pran do. So this Brahm is getting differentiated and becoming grosser and grosser.
Right.
At later step with the so this theory is more detailed in Sankhya Sutra and Yoga Sutra. Upanishad is just giving the explanation. It's not giving that right away what they are.
Right. So they are not saying that. If you look at how Katha Upanishad started, Yama is saying that Brahma whatever words we use, whatever attributes we use, we cannot know that.
Correct.
So whatever best we are doing here is trying to give attributes and trying to understand what it is. I gave an example. Say there is a tribal area which was aloof from this modern world for centuries. So in that tribal area, somebody from that area went to a city and saw iPhone for the first time in his life. Now he went back to his village and explained everything about iPhone to the tribals. Now whatever he said, whether he understood iPhone, he just saw it, and then he tried to explain the attributes of that iPhone to the villagers, fellow villagers. And whatever fellow villagers, they were trying to create imaginary of iPhone by listening to him. So one who is saying that is wrong, one who is imagining by listening that is also wrong. So Brahma can only be known through realization. Whatever we are discussing here, one interpretation versus another interpretation versus what Rishi is trying to say. But ultimately we must walk that path. Then only we will understand what Brahman is. Otherwise it's all just the…
No, that's fine. See, so you are talking about experiential aspect of
Right.
Brahman, which cannot be communicated.
Right.
But what I am trying to say, when you are taking a book like Upanishad,
Right.
they have taken care that if you are not having that inclination of experiential
Right.
Brahman, still you can make progress on the Jnana Yoga mark if you have the sharp intellect. So based
Right.
on your own tendencies and inclination, you should choose your path.
Right.
Okay? So if you think that you are very intellectual and you can
Right.
slice and dice and you have very analytical mind, they have taken care in the words and they will try to communicate you almost everything through the particular uses of metaphor and words. And
Right.
then they tell you now go ahead on the experience. But
Right.
what I am saying is not so muddled up.
Right.
Stories are there to explain that difficult idea, but still
Right.
a lot of care has been taken in building that vocabulary.
Sure, sure. No, understand.
My
And-
understanding is more this confusion happens because we are translating and then retranslating, trying to understand.
Or
That is where
interpreting,
loss
or
is
interpreting,
happening.
or
Yeah.
interpreting.
Yeah, because when they say Brahm, they say
Right.
Atman, they mean very, very, very specific.
Right.
When you say soul, it gets muddled up.
Correct, correct. And there is, I mean, I have tried to take care of that aspect. Whenever we say something in English, whatever it can represent in experience, right? If one has at least a little bit of experience with some sadhana over the years, whatever he or she is saying, whatever he or she is experiencing, and that's what I want to go with. So whatever the context we are talking about, I also go by that, not just the literal whatever is written here.
Yeah, and in Katha Upanishad or in other ones also, the famous 11, even if the words don't communicate, they come out with a story so many times to communicate the central
Right.
idea.
Right. So it's like interpretation, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whatever somebody has interpreted.
10:55. I was enjoying.
What is the question?
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the question that Yami is answering, Nachiketa in this?
Actually, that is completed in the first adhyaya.
No, but
So-
right now he's answering the third question. the last
No, it's already completed. So this is explanation or extension of all that. Again.
Thank you. I will
Thank
come
you.
again.
Sure, definitely. So Nachiketa asked 3 boons, and Yama explained the Brahma Vidya as the third boon. Everything about Brahma and what it can be is covered in the first adhyaya. But then this second adhyaya is kind of more explanation of what is said. So it's the same thing, but with more interpretations.
But is he describing what happens after death, or is he describing?
No, that is also completed. So,
So
yes.
what exactly is he describing?
So this is again aspects of Brahma and how one can realize that. So, and I would say
So that's to his question. What is Brahman?
we cannot say anything. Krishna clearly says there are three types of things in this world, in this loka. Kshara, right? Kshara, which is, I mean, we all experience that thing that can change the form, or that can be destroyed and converted into something else, our bodies and all the objects. Then there is something called Akshara. Now, for Akshara, he talked about two different aspects. One, which we cannot see, or we have experiential notion of what it is, like energy. Third aspect of that is, I mean, second aspect and third entity is Jiva. So all these Jivas that live in this world, Jiva is Atma covered with Trigunatmik Maya. So that is also part of this world, this loka, because Maya is within this world. And what is beyond that is Atma. And that Atma is Ansha of Paramatma. And what Paramatma is, nobody can know. It's clearly said in Bhagavad Gita. So whatever we try to do is just trying to explain those attributes that we can perceive. Or even whatever our experience is, we just try to put into words that is possible in our intellect. But what is Brahma? Nobody can say. So the story I said about that iPhone example, right? So person who is explaining this is iPhone, or I saw iPhone, and how it looked, how it interacted, that is inadequate, not complete, right? Until and unless he had that iPhone and he could show everyone. The people, the fellow villagers, they are trying to understand what iPhone is with just imagination. Whatever that other fellow put into words, they are trying to create image of iPhone, and everybody had different images because everybody could see or perceive things differently. So what is really iPhone? Nobody knew. Who is saying, who is listening. And that's why we cannot say what Brahma is. We can just describe our whatever our gross level interaction is, but that is not Brahma. One Upanishad before we covered in great details, Ishavasya Upanishad, that has a very good metaphor that Satya is covered with bright light, and what is beyond that, I just try to pursue that, but that bright light stops me from knowing what it is. And once I know it, again I come back and I cannot say what is beyond that bright light. So Brahma is like that. So I think we can stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.